and she's working that out. In addition, she also found out that through the Kraken, and the Kraken is the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion, who works these kind of problems, that we have Chinese and Iranian involvement.
Wow.
Very, very startling. That's the first I've heard it in the counting process.
Gotcha.
More to follow on that. But that certainly puts in the executive order that President Trump put out in September of 2018 comes into effect. So that is very significant. It's the first I've heard of it that it's been written, and I'm now seeing it pop up in other areas. The other areas were in Pennsylvania, for instance, the state sent out 1.8 million mail-in ballots, and then they counted 2.5 million mail-in ballots. You figure, but I think somebody was printing mail-in ballots and that they're illegal. That's 700,000 ballots, gentlemen, that have got to be taken off. And that's clearly the difference, in my humble opinion, in these states. So this is what we're seeing. The other thing I saw came up was Wisconsin has identified 150,000 fraudulent votes, and they outline them by the numbers very accurately. So this is what is all developing. It's a ton of information coming in, much of it from crowdsourcing, from people like us, people that are studying these numbers. And the final thing I want to highlight before I want Colonel Mike in, or Dr. Mike in, is I saw a very, very important analysis of the data in real time. And when they stopped the voting in about 6 or 7 states, some number, around midnight or so, all of a sudden, around 3 or 4 numbers would come out. And it would be like, for instance, Virginia. Trump won Virginia. And now I think we're kind of surprised about it, particularly the way Fox rolled in 5 minutes after the polls closed, and Trump was way ahead. And until they stopped, then they threw in a slug of votes. But here's what happened. On that slug of votes they threw in Virginia, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia, they used an algorithm. Now, how do I know they used an algorithm? Because the ratio of number of votes, it may be 120,000, 138,000, like in Michigan, whatever it was the exact ratio in all the states, the same.
Wow, amazing.
And so right there is evidence, just looking at numbers, that an algorithm was put on it. It would be impossible to get that exact same number in 4 or 5 states around the same time.
So, General, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The way you're talking today on Thanksgiving Day, this is just a tip that we're learning about.
Precisely, Colonel Mike. And that's why I think we should say, and I'm certainly going to say it, with this data that's coming in, Biden ought to concede right now, and just concede. Now, he probably won't, but what we're talking about, because it was so massive and because so many people involved, you can't hide this. Time is not our friend, but this is treason.
Yes.
This is treason. We are looking at treason on a massive scale. And the people that were nominated by Biden to be Secretary of State and those other functions that they nominated, UN ambassador, et cetera, were all probably involved. They were all involved in the Russian hoax. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
And now involved with this. So the connectivity, and here's where I'm going to see, where is John Durham's report? What has John Durham done? Or is John Durham part of the deep state?
He's got to be replaced. He's got to be replaced. He's got to be pulled out. General, I had a question on the radio yesterday from a caller who wanted to know, why are we going this far, and why didn't Biden early on give us a hint to who his cabinet was until they thought they stole the election. And you never heard these names. You never heard these names when he was down in the basement or doing his drive-bys, you know, the 14 cars running around. You'd never heard these names, and instantaneously they come out of nowhere. And you say, like, what is this, a recycle program of the Clinton-Obama administration? No, these are deep staters, like you said. Dr. Mike, what do you say?
Well, I think in terms of what the general has told us over the past 2 weeks, that clearly there was an awful lot of people involved. And the price of that at the top for Biden is to make sure every one of them is rewarded. And so no one gets his nose out of joint and can rat out the whole process. And I think that's what you're seeing in this cabinet making, because it's really a collection of nobodies, has-beens, and traitors. And it's clearly a payoff for these are nondescript swamp creatures, if you will. And I think it's a terrible, it couldn't be worse than what they have. And it's clear at the lack of quality in the people they've appointed that someone else is going to be calling the shots. And it won't be Biden, and it won't be that person who is the vice president. It will be somebody who's in touch with the foreign countries that Biden has been bought off by.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thing to add what Dr. Mike said, in addition to this being a treasonous activity of such a scale, a lot of people involved, and that's where leaks occur. And that's why I believe the Trump administration has been laying this out. But what we don't see DOJ involvement. We don't see FBI involvement. I mean, participating to track down, to uncover this. We don't.
What is it with that?
We don't see the CIA. So those three agencies that are paramount structures of our national security apparatus, apparently some of them were participating, and the White House couldn't trust them because they'd leak it and expose it, and so they wouldn't try it. But when you start putting this all together, and you put it together in the form of 2020 and the Russian hoax, the impeachment that was in January, and then you have, which nobody has brought up except maybe us Machiavellian people, this Chinese COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if China is working on voting and the numbers of ballots, and we've mentioned before the special ops seizing the servers in Frankfurt, Germany, if we mention this, is there a connection? I want to leave it alone now, but I'm beginning to think that there was a connection between those Democrats and China. Now, let's leave it off there, but there are too many things, and Dr. Mike in our world start seeing these things, and you start seeing patterns of behavior, and certainly COVID-19, the pandemic, allowed the open mail-in ballots. And like when I pointed out where you had in Pennsylvania, 1.8 million votes sent out, but then they counted 2.5 million votes mail-in ballots. I mean, something is grossly wrong. And the American people, and that's why you're so valuable, what you both are doing here and having.
Well, we're happy to have you on, General. We're all patriots, and we're doing this to expose it to the American people, to our audience. And we're thankful that you come on all the time and we expose this information weekly.
Well, and it's changing dramatically weekly.
Yes.
And that's why when we started out, Colonel Mike, I said, the counteroffensive has started. There is more. And I believe if it was done properly, if Dr. Mike and I were doing it, we would have enough communications intelligence to have voice and emails, et cetera, on those individuals that were doing this against our nation, committing treason in defiance of the Constitution that we all upheld of to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And they should have alerted and done it legally. Probably you'd have to do the Supreme Court because it was such a high level. And when you look at the deep state corruption, as I mentioned, in CIA, in DOJ, and the FBI, then you have to have a very tight legal group. And the corruption in the legal office, in the legal branches, the judges, the corruption we've got there.
In the post office, sir.
The post office. It is rampant. We have never seen anything like it. This is the greatest treasonous activity that has ever happened in American history. Yet the big tech doesn't let people know. Google doesn't put this information out. They're hiding it. All the mainstream media. Look at Fox News.
Also, sir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fox News went south on us. So this is why this is such a huge thing. People cannot even conceive anything like this, and they think they're going to get away with it, because when you have a mainstream media that is not free and open, then we have a problem, don't we, as a nation?
It is indeed a problem, sir. And I was just going to say that the one advantage that I think the good guys have in this is that the enemy is endlessly arrogant, and they assume that their enemy is stupid. And it's what sticks in my mind very clearly is Pelosi said, "I don't care what happens on election day. Biden will be sworn in on the 20th of January, 2021. And that stuck in my mind because I thought, man, she probably shouldn't have said that. Just because, not because it was going to be true, but because she thought it was going to be true, because she knew what was going on.
Precisely, Dr. Mike. And the fact is Biden himself, in a moment, said he had the most sophisticated cyber warfare
That's right,
ever
sir.
assembled. There's no question about it. So these things are coming fast and furious. So is the 14th of December. And so we've got to get it in the right legal hands. I hope and pray that they have already kept a few key Supreme Court justices that have not been politicized in tow and aware of it. And unfortunately, the Chief Justice would not be one of those that I would have informed what's going on.
You couldn't take a chance with him, sir, no.
No taking a chance.
No.
Well, he was in charge, or he's in charge of the FISA court, and he never leaked a word about what they were doing with the FISA courts during the Spygate with Trump. But going
Correct.
back to your statement, General, a couple of weeks ago, you talked about Joseph Stalin, about it doesn't matter who votes, it's who counts the votes. And that's what they were going with. And that's what Pelosi meant, Dr. Mike.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That was the modern Joseph Stalin. I don't care. We're going to win anyway.
Yeah.
Spot on, Colonel Mike. You tapped it right away. They were arrogant and they're bragging about it.
Yep. Well, I don't think we're, the ship is still not fully afloat, but I think we're a bit more buoyant than we were 3 or 4 days ago. And
We are.
What I wanted to raise is this information appears to be so solid and definitive almost. And of course, it'll be up to the courts and the judges and that. But I hope that they're taking action to prevent these people from fleeing the country. I hope they have some kind of a watch list or an enumeration of people like Newsom, like the governor of Georgia, like Pelosi, like Feinstein, all of these people, and Brennan and Clapper, and you know the litany.
Right.
But the idea that these people could get away to fight again another day is one that really I find distressing.
Well, I do too. But clearly we know Biden and Obama, what their security details are. But I'm not sure what else they've done on it. And our number one priority has got to be that it's exposed.
Absolutely.
And then we take them, and they should be. I mean, frankly, I would arrest them. We have enough right now to arrest them right now while they're eating their turkey dinner, to come in and arrest them just the way they did some of the Republicans. But
most
that
of them were
means
probably
that
eating Ping Pao chicken.